Early this morning, we had a giant pile of cards claimed to be leaked from the upcoming Pokemon Pocket Space-Time expansion released across the internet. I want to do my due diligence and make it clear here that I'm covering what's potentially pre-release stuff or even maybe fake. That being said, cross-referencing a lot of the illustration artists on these look to line up with artwork from those artists. This would be an incredible amount of work if these were fake, so I'd be kind of surprised if that's the case. That being said, we'll find out if I'm going to eat crow on those words in just a couple of days. I'm going to go ahead and dive on into talking about these cards as though they are real. So I think there's some neat and awesome designs that a lot of you at home will enjoy as much as myself if they make it into the game. Let's go ahead and dive into it, shall we? Let's kick things off with Garchomp, 140 HP, Stage 2, with the Pokemon ability Reckless Shearing. You have to discard a card from your hand to draw a card, and you can do this once per turn. Its Pokemon attack, while requiring 2 different energy, does 100 points of damage for a fairly minimal investment. In addition to Garchomp, our Gible here is officially confirmed, and the Gabite is a new leak in today's dump of cards. When everything is going absolutely according to plan, your stage 2s are all coming together, you have both your colors of energy, Garchomp's an incredibly powerful card. Hitting for 100 points for just 2 energy is solidly above rate, and its Pokemon ability is quite potent, going to make the rest of your game plan that much more consistent once you get it together. That being said, unless we get some type of incredible support for both Stage 2 Pokemon and dual color energies, I don't know that I would expect Garchomp to be super playable in terms of competitiveness. While the power is here when everything lines up, that's just not going to happen a lot of the time for both 2 color and Stage 2 reasons, like we see with other cards in this vein like Dragonite in our current expansion. The last thing to note about Garchomp is how it works with Cynthia, which is an officially confirmed supporter card from our teaser video. Cynthia gives Garchomp plus 50 damage for a turn, and the way this allows this 100 damage attack to line up cleanly into a variety of metagame threats, both the existing Mewtwo EX as well as the upcoming Dialga and Palkia in our new expansion, makes me think the likelihood of this Garchomp being real is quite likely. Speaking of Cynthia, our next stage 2 that she also works with is Togekiss, 140 HP with a 2 energy attack. Overdrive Smash deals 60 to start, but then deals an additional plus 60 the following turn. Dealing 60 into 120 means that you get 180 over the course of 2 turns, which is quite a heavy hit if you get wound up. When you factor in your Cynthia breakpoints, this could deal 100 into 120, or it could be dealing 60 into 170. 170 clears a lot of things in the metagame in one hit, only missing the extra beefy stage 2s that exist, such as Venusaur, Blastoise, and Charizard as of right now. Similar to Garchomp, Togekiss's design really rewards you for going first, especially when we look at the Stage 1 and basic it's paired with. Togetic in particular deals 40 damage for 1 energy, so if you have first evolution advantage, you evolve into Togetic, attack with Fairy Wind for 40, you can then evolve into Togekiss and start smashing for 60 into 120, making it one of the most aggressive curves in the game if all of your evolutions line up. I think if we get anything that makes stage 2s remotely more consistent, this card in tandem with the extra Cynthia breakpoints could be a force to be reckoned with in the metagame. That consistency is going to be a key part of whether or not it's successful though. Next up, we have Porygon-Z, a 140 HP Stage 2 that has a Buggy Beam attack, dealing 80 damage for 3 colorless energy, and changing the energy in your opponent's energy zone next turn to one of the 8 different types in Pocket at random. While this can obviously evolve from the base Porygon that we have now, we're also getting a new 60 HP Porygon as well as an 80 HP Porygon 2 that is the Stage 1. Porygon-Z's attack feels like the type of thing as to whether or not it'll be competitive will depend a lot on the context of the format that we're playing. If there's a lot of decks that have all specific energy types in their attacks, changing even one of your opponent's energy, which is incredibly likely to do to effectively be a brick, could make or break a lot of the games that you play. That being said, you are going to have some inconsistency that a stage 2 brings to the table, and this ultimately isn't dealing a ton of damage for a heavy evolution Pokemon, so the disruptive element's going to be key as to whether or not this card is good. Something else that's worth noting is that this can evolve from the existing Porygon that we have, whose data scan ability, in tandem with things like Pokeball that shuffle our deck, has felt like it has potential in the past. So being able to evolve that into a Porygon 2 and potentially a disruptive finisher, I think has a lot of upside that'll be worth exploring. This having an all colorless attack also means that it's something you could ramp with a Dialga inside of a metal shell, since our Dialga EX doesn't care about the typing of things it's putting extra metal energy on. Next up, we have our first EX Pokemon to cover today. Infernape EX is 170 HP with a 2 Fire Energy Flare Blitz attack that deals 140 damage, but more importantly, discards all fire energy attached to itself. This is a really interesting design in tandem with the fact that the retreat cost on this card is completely free. So if you were to try and leverage this, the play patterns would be setting up something else that has a lower energy attack, probably something with 1 or 2. You switch into Infernape, get your big 140 hit off, and then you pull back out, putting up something else while you charge the monkey back up. This could potentially be another card that you pair with Moltres, but I'm somewhat skeptical that this would be a better payoff than something like Charizard in that core, so I would bet if it ends up being competitive somewhere, it's likely in a new shell. Next up, we have Weavile EX, a stage 1 with 140 HP, whose Scratching Nail attacks does 30 damage to start, but it deals an additional 40 if the opponent's active Pokemon already has damage marked on it. This is the type of design I've been asking to see more of in Pokemon Pocket. It's very akin to Executor EX, which is an incredibly powerful card in our current metagame. It's strong because this is a design that really likes going first and having first evolution advantage. You lead on your Sneasel, and then on your second turn, when you're attaching your first energy, you evolve into this and start cracking for damage. This does 30 and then 100 over the course of 2 attacks for just a 1 energy investment, or an average of 50 per turn, which is really solid for the rate. The fact that you'll have the option to pair Weavile with Genetic Apex Weezing, another dark Pokemon that really enjoys going first with that first evolution advantage, means that we'll hopefully see some decks develop in our new metagame that want to be going first consistently, as opposed to all of the ones that like going second for that first energy advantage like we've had in our previous formats. Our third EX Pokemon in today's leak is Gallade, a 170 HP fighting Pokemon that has Energized Blade for 2 energy. It deals 70 with an additional 20 for each energy attached to your opponent's active Pokemon. You should note that this is the male version of Gardevoir, so it also evolves from Cresselia and Routes, who are also getting new variations of that only depend on colorless energy to attack while still being psychic types, so you can play them in an all-fighting Gallade deck, I would wager. At a glance, I don't know that I'm super excited about this design personally. You're going to deal somewhere between 90 and 130 points of damage for 2 energy with your attacks, which isn't a huge payoff for how inconsistent Stage 2 Pokemon tend to be. Its 170 HP is nice at the surface level, but it's worth noting that this is not enough to survive a side drive from a Mewtwo, because this is a fighting type Pokemon that's weak to Psychic. Next up, we have Manaphy, a 50 HP basic Pokemon with the Oceanic Gift attack for a single water energy. You get to choose 2 of your bench Pokemon and take a water energy from your energy zone and attach it to them. Similar to the templating on Dialga in this set, it is noteworthy that this energy acceleration does not require any specific typing on your bench, so you could use this to attach water energy to things that need colorless, or something like a Dragonite, for example. Two immediate thoughts looking at this design. The first is this could be a fantastic Palkia enabler, one of our confirmed cards from the teaser, being able to accelerate that up to 4 energy ASAP so you can crack with 150 seems quite potent. It also seems like this is going to be a card that encourages you to play more basic Pokemon like you often want to do anyways, because in order to get 2 energy out of this every turn, you're going to need 2 things on your bench to attach 1 to each 2. I could see a world where something worth exploring is you play Manaphy, Palkia, and Gyarados as your 3 primary Pokemon line, since that gives you 2 payoffs for Manaphy to accelerate into, and Palkia gets to serve double duty as both a payoff for Manaphy, but also a lead in the games where Manaphy doesn't show up for you. Rotom is a potentially interesting tech card, 70 HP basic with a colorless attack assault laser that does a base 20 that jumps up to a boosted plus 30 if the opposing Pokemon has a Poke Tool attached to it. Obviously, whether or not this card's going to be playable will depend very heavily on how many Poke Tools there are in the format, but we're reviewing a few of those shortly, and to give a short teaser, there's definitely going to be some playable ones. Magnezone is here as a stage 2 payoff for Magneton from Genetic Apex. 140 HP. This has a 3 energy Thunder Blast attack that deals 110 while discarding 1 lightning energy. It's worth noting that this is the first stage 2 Pokemon design we've had that actually uses less energy to attack than the stage 1 that it evolves from, but I think that makes sense from an overall design perspective, since Magneton has an ability that allows you to charge itself up, and this is discarding down energy, so if you had Magneton up to 4, Magnezone's going to be able to attack twice for 110 before you need to put an additional energy investment into it. 110 isn't a super exciting breakpoint at the surface level. Even with Giovanni, it's going to miss some key things in the metagame like Mew, EX, and Celebi. That being said, the electric typing here does do a little bit of lifting, because things like Moltres, Articuno, and Zapdos EX, which all see play, are weak to it, which means in tandem with Giovanni, this could jump up to 140 to clear all of those in a single shot. The biggest thing Magnezone could do for the game, though, is bring new life to Lieutenant Surge decks that have struggled to be competitive. Magneton has always been a pretty solid enabler to get you more energy onto your Raichu, and Magnezone's going to give you some more flexibility so that when the games where Raichu doesn't show up or it gets taken down, you have kind of another payoff to put on top of that Magneton to close the game out with. Perhaps this means a single knockout point lightning deck could be competitive. Our first spoiled supporter is a doozy. Cirrus switches one of your opponent's bench Pokemon that has damage on it into the active spot. While this isn't a strictly better Sabrina situationally, it's going to be a huge improvement. This means that decks like Mewtwo and Pikachu that often rely on pulling a weakened EX back to the bench to get attacking with something else are going to be a lot more susceptible to you running down those last couple of knockout points you need to win the game. It's definitely going to be interesting to see how the metagame shapes up as to whether or not Cirrus or Sabrina is the card you want to be playing. I wouldn't be surprised in a lot of instances, especially in open deck list tournament formats, if you end up wanting to play one of each, since it can put your opponent in an awkward spot as to which of the two they're trying to play around at any given moment. Our next leaked supporter, Volkner, says choose one of your Electrive or Luxray attached to lightning energy from your discard pile to that Pokemon. It's hard to guesstimate exactly where this card's going to end up at, because we don't know Electrive or Luxray's text boxes as of the recording of this video. That being said, getting extra energy attached tends to be powerful, even if it does have a pretty strict condition where you're going to need to have things that got knocked out with energy to have happened earlier in the game. Finally, we have 3 different Pokemon tools potentially spoiled in this leak. The Giant Cape gives the Pokemon it's attached to plus 20 HP. The Rocky Helmet bestows that Druddigon ability of dealing 20 damage back to things that attack you while you're in the active spot. And Lumberry is a full heal style effect that clears status conditions at the end of the turn. Giant Cape seems like it would be incredibly playable. There are a number of Pokemon like Melmetal and Kabutops that feel really close to being competitive, but fail to clear certain breakpoints in the metagame, and getting just a little bit more HP would be a really big deal for them. Rocky Helmet's an interesting one. First thought is you could put this on Druddigon itself to make dealing 40 damage back to your opponent be a big deal. I think the key way to think about this card is it's a way to deal damage without an energy investment, which is a pretty potent effect. Bloomberry is one that feels like it could go either way. We haven't existed in a metagame up until this point where things like paralysis, sleep, or even poison are all that common. I don't think I would play this in our current format because deck slots are so tight, but there could be a world in the future where this is a good tool to have in your toolbox to reach for to get you out of sticky situations. Finally, we also have a Cresselia EX that is set to be a promo EX card not in the upcoming expansion. It has 140 HP, deals 80 damage for 3 energy, and says whenever you attach a psychic energy from your energy zone to this Pokemon, heal it for 20. This card is actually one of the ones that makes me think this dump of leaks is most likely to be real, because this card honestly seems kind of bad, which would follow suit after the Lapras EX, which was our previous promo EX, was also pretty stinky and not remotely competitive. Usually when leaks happen that are fake, the cards tend to be very pushed and overexciting with their effects, while this entire group of cards has a mixture of things like Cresselia that are very clearly as well as other designs that are interesting and likely very playable. I'm super excited to find out in a couple of days if these cards are really coming in the Space-Time Smackdown expansion. Based on the promotional materials that we've seen, I would estimate that the set is likely to release in between the 29th and the 30th at that rollover, since some of the promo stuff says it releases on the 30th and some of it says the 29th, and the rollover time is kind of in between those 2 days depending on where you're at in the world. I want to again just reiterate that this is leaked, unconfirmed information in this video. Some of it could be correct, but some of it could also be early that ends up getting changed before the cards come out, or it could be made up altogether. The Pokemon Pocket space is still very new, so we don't have consistency on knowing really what to expect when it comes to advanced information like this. I would love to hear in the comments down below your thoughts on these cards, or if you have any more information confirming that this could be real, or letting us know that it's obviously fake because of reason XYZ that I missed. If you happen to be new here, consider subscribing to the channel. I cover Pokemon Pocket stuff here 7 days a week, and I'm super looking forward to Space-Time Smackdown dropping so we can brew tons of sweet decks with all of these fantastic new cards. I appreciate you making it through all the way to the end. Smash that like button if you enjoyed what I had to say, and I hope your next pack is an excellent one.